Howdy, y'all, and welcome to Catholic Not Fascist Podcast. Here, we acknowledge both the love and the sins of the Church, while not shying away from the strength and weaknesses within our own humanity.
As we step on a path toward atonement with an open mind and heart full of joy, we are so happy you're joining us. We are your humble hosts. I'm Nicole Secker.
And I'm Megan Larson.
Welcome to Catholic.
Welcome back, y'all. So our topic for today is women activists in the church, correct?
Kind of. Women saints. Well, yeah, women activists. I think that works. Unfortunately, Meg is traveling right now, and she doesn't have a good enough signal for us to record a video, so that's why we're just recording audio.
Sorry, one bar.
But hopefully we'll be back up and running soon, and at some point maybe even get a little ahead of ourselves again. We were at one point, but unfortunately, life happens. So
Yes.
Yesterday was International Women's Day.
Whoop whoop.
And he shared with you earlier today a screenshot from Bishop Barron. But I really want you to read that quote that he posted.
A married woman must leave God at the altar to find him in her domestic cares. By St. Francis of Rome.
Does this surprise you that Bishop Barron would post this?
It does not surprise me that Bishop Barron would post this, and it also tells me that he has no idea about the complexities in which God made women.
So obviously I went through the comments because I was curious, and some people, pushed back a little bit, and some people were obviously in full trad mode agreement with it. And somebody said, there were also comments that were like, well, this is no different than, saying that like men also have other duties that take them away from the altar. And I'm like, no, my friends. This says a married woman must.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, this reads as you cannot be a priest, which I guess, to be fair, would probably be applicable to all women in his eyes. But like this idea.
Well, it's very clear to me that Bishop Barron never met Saint Joan of Arc. Okay.
Well, I mean, that's right. And like one of the lovely ladies that we were going to talk about today was Dorothy Day.
Oh, yes.
Which I think you know more about her than I do, actually. So can you tell me like a little bit about her?
So before Dorothy Day came to the church, really, it's my understanding she was an anarchist, a true activist, like to her core. And in kind of like doing that work is where she found her calling through the church and to the church.
Okay.
Yes.
That's really interesting because a lot of Catholics would argue that anarchy is like counter to Catholicism.
And yet, Dorothy Day, servant of God, Dorothy Day.
Right. There's actually a quote from her. I think I shared it with you earlier this week in our Signal chat.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a quote from Dorothy Day. I think anarchy is natural to the Catholic. The church is pretty anarchistic. Who pays attention to the Pope or the cardinals? Conscience is supreme.
Yes, and even I want to take it to like a different level of like her care for the poor is what anarchy is all about. It is going against a capitalistic system that continuously punishes people into poverty. And Dorothy Day is standing up and saying, absolutely not. Because I believe in human dignity, because we are all made in the likeness of God, in God's image.
I sent you another quote that I found from her. I'm just real active on the like social media in the Catholic world, and some things pop up. I was actually looking on Pinterest for images of San Oscar de Romero, but
Hmm.
she popped up too because they kind of have some things in common, but not everything. But there was a quote that she says, "We are not expecting utopia here on this earth, but God meant things to be much easier than we have made them."
That's such a beautiful quote.
I think like she does not feel that the capitalistic society that we have, the forms of government that we have are serving the people. And despite the fact that we are a democracy, yes, Republicans, we are a democracy. A republic is a representative form of democracy. Sorry, I just don't know how many times I've had Republicans literally be like, "But we're a republic," and I'm like, "A republic is a form of democracy, i.e., all republics are democracies, but not all democracies are republics." Sorry, it's a little
Yeah,
long.
and like capital, so like this is like another thing of like, she was very Dorothy Day was very anti-war, right? And we are living in one of the biggest war-mongering, propaganda throwing um societies in the world. We have been in war basically since the days we got started over here. And I think like, her big protest was against like obviously like the Vietnam War, right?
Yeah.
That was like her time. But it's like that's what we are called to do as Roman Catholics is to end war at all costs because we're supposed to be inviting heaven, like we are supposed to be building heaven here on earth. That is what we are called to do. And yet humanity keeps choosing this other thing. And I love her rigorous nature about just like her, like this is intolerable to her. And she was known to, wasn't she kind of like known to like be a smoker too, if I
Oh, yeah,
remember
no,
correctly?
I've seen many images of her as a smoker. I am actually a member of a group called the, Dorothea. They say it Dorothea, but it's Dorothy and Thea Bowman is where the name comes from, but the Dorothea Project.
Hmm.
Um, so I've been kind of touching her world in regards to that. I just kind of like saved deep diving into her because I knew we were going to talk about her, and you knew more about her than I did. So because I've just kind of picked up bits and pieces here and there. But she's definitely somebody I want to read more about. But yeah, anyways, I see pictures of her all the time with a cigarette.
Absolutely. One of my favorite images, this is true story. It's on Sock Religious. So is like this image of her just like sitting there like with her, hands kind of wrapped together on her knee. And then there's these like two officers like staring her down with like a pistol and everything. And the the shirt says fresh out of the slammer. And I'm like, I love the idea of Dorothy Day as a saint, like in this way. I feel like she speaks so much to even our era now, in this sense of like, we are saying, like, we want peace. That's what she's doing. And she's saying, like, I'm going to do this even if it hurts me, even if I go to jail. Like, I'm not going to stop for the people. Like, it's just pure sass. And I just, we hear so often about like saints that are so meek and so mild. And so I'm like, I don't want a saint like that. I want a sassy saint.
Earlier when I'd been looking for pictures of Oscar de Romeo and pictures of her popped up, I got like, you know how Pinterest does, it brings a whole bunch of quotes together. So
Hmm.
there is one on here that says, "Everyone wants a revolution, but nobody wants to do the dishes."
I'm into that.
Which I just think speaks to how sassy she is. But like also, I really like that because like I think all of us that care about the situation in the world right now are really struggling, right? Like me and you have been talking about that. There's been some anxiety and stress created from that in both of our lives, and we don't want to stick our heads in the sand. But I think like we have to think about like what is it that I can do that's actually productive? Because like doom scrolling on Instagram is tempting, but it's not productive, right? How does that really fight the resistance,
Well,
right?
and I think what's really beautiful about this is Dorothy saying, this is like, it's all about the process. It's not about perfection. And doing the dishes is part of the process. So like you have to be ready to be there and to do the work. And what I really like is like that really aligns with like things like I've heard Miriam Kaba say some of that particular author's writings. And the the whole like meat of it is you don't want your revolution to fall to the wayside and be some artistic gathering in the street and that be the end of it. And I think that's what Dorothy Day is like really saying in this is like the dishes are important, like the work in between is important, the boring stuff is important. I think it's so funny because it's just a one liner you're throwing at me, right? But it means so much more whenever I think about it in the context of advocacy and
Mhm.
revolution. When we are stuck in a broken system that perpetuates harm. And Dorothy Day knew that from day one. Dorothy Day knew we are in a system that perpetuates harm, and she was done with it. And like, I want to put that quote up in my house. It's so important for me not to lose sight that the dishes are what's important, that, it's not all fun and games and frog suits, although I do love frog suits.
And
It's
I
the whole
don't think there's
picture.
anything wrong with making the revolution fun because like we've talked about
No,
this,
no.
you need to have joy. But like I also think it's important to note somebody does need to do the dishes. Like you
Yeah.
need clean dishes so you all don't get sick. You know, like you need to eat. You need to hopefully have a safe and warm place to sleep. And you need your family to have that too. So like these things are also important. It's not,
Mhm.
yeah. Sorry.
And it like if I can make a bridge to this because our patron saint of this channel is Saint Joan of Arc, who you know more personally than I do.
Yeah.
Um, but I think about that grit that Dorothy has. It's the same grit that Joan of Arc had. It's the same grit. It's a knowing. This is what I have to do.
I think it's like it's a really key part. I didn't look at Joan of Arc specifically for this podcast, but like Meg is right. I have a strong relationship with her. Joan is my confirmation saint.
Mhm.
And really like providentially, my aunt who came to visit from Canada at that time, um, brought me a book for my confirmation. She did not know what I had picked as my confirmation or who I had picked as my confirmation saint. And it was a book on Joan of Arc written by
Oh, you never told me that.
I'm surprised I haven't told you that. Like that's like I feel like it's such like a like it's kismet, right? Like it's
Yeah.
providence. It's like and that's what she said too. Oh, it's providence. So because like not only was it a book on Joan of Arc, right? But like why I do wonder why she particularly felt that that would be the right book for me because so I got confirmed when I was like 13. I was a reader, but this book is like it's by Mark Twain and it's like 1200 pages. It's really long. So surprising, right? Mark Twain wrote a book about Joan of Arc. He is reported as saying that this was his best work. He spent like
Um,
like a decade researching it. Like he went so he's not a Catholic, Mark Twain, but he went through and he read all of the records from the court hearing.
wow.
So it's if you want to learn more about Joan of Arc, it is a long book, but it is a really good book. And it's written, like it's like a novel. So like it's a story. It's not like, boring in that way.
I
At
love
least
that.
I don't think so. It's been a long time since I've read it though. But Joan was this young woman who like didn't really want to do what God was asking her to do. Like she more than once was like, I just want to go home to my mother. Like this girl was 17, but she donned male clothing and rode a horse into battle. And then when she was captured by the British, they were never able to catch her in heresy, which she was an illiterate peasant from France. So you know that God was working there.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
she bravely faces her kind of her personal crucifixion, right? She's burnt at the stake as a witch. Um, and she asks someone to hold up the crucifix so she can look at it as she's dying.
Incredible.
And this girl, when this happens, is like 18. Like this is a baby, guys. Um, and she wasn't canonized until like 1920. It took a really long time.
And, it's so different in another way, right? Like Saint Joan of Arc is this warrior. And, to me, I do think activism is this flavor of being a warrior. But like you think about like the activism that Dorothy Day does, starting like the Catholic Worker, like, newspaper, right? This
And
radical paper,
movement.
um, and movement, like
That's still a
promising
thing that goes
justice and
on.
mercy.
Like, I just started following the Catholic Worker on Facebook, and like they happen to be like the person who does that happens to be based in St. Louis. Catholic worker houses, which are kind of like communes all over the country. Which, like, how did I not know about this before? This is
Oh,
like
I'm shocked that you didn't. So I actually have met people that have lived in those like,
houses.
yeah,
Huh.
houses. And
Yeah.
I think that it's like it's this nonviolence, voluntary poverty, and like if I wasn't married
I
to,
I was just about to say this. If I wasn't married, I would up and move into one right
that's
now.
exactly what I would be doing. Like, and like the movement itself is so important to me because I think like the voluntary poverty for me, it is so important because it helps you meet people like where they are at. It keeps you humble, but it also really keeps you woke to the realness of this problem.
Okay, so I have two quotes from Dorothy. Let me find them that like really reflect this.
While you do that, I'm just going to say, like, when I think about the Catholic worker movement and their dedication to like the homeless and the hungry and those that are being like rejected by society, like one of the raddest things we can do, and one like that brings us closer to sainthood, is to refuse to leave this population. And
I
because
think all you
society,
I think
yeah,
all you have to do is read Matthew 23, right? We're Jesus is like this is the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus is talking about who are the rams and who are the sheep, right? The sheep
hmm,
being like the good guys. The
yeah,
sheep are the people who feed the hungry, who welcome the stranger, who clothe the naked.
hmm,
If you want to know how to get to heaven, it's those things. And it's not because your actions are getting you to heaven, but it's because you're so transformed by the love of Jesus that you want to do these things.
hmm. And you can't be, fighting for housing. Sorry about that. For You can't be fighting for like securing shelter and then be pro-war. Like that's insane, right? And so it's this justice for all I am
And
obsessed with.
I think it's really relevant right now when we're like watching a war start and like literally a lot of people have heard, okay, yeah, we've bombed Iran and we targeted a petroleum processor. But like I was talking to somebody at work today who wasn't aware that there is oil, like that there is like petroleum rain coming down, black rain on Tehran.
Hmm.
And this isn't the first time that's happened. Like this happened in the Gulf War that we saw similar environmental crises. And like a lot of our soldiers got cancer from that, had health
Yes.
problems from that.
Oh,
So
and all sorts of problems. Like we had, soldiers coming back that when they were ready to have children, they were having kids with like spina bifida. Um,
I highly suspect that many of the children that are currently in utero in Tehran right now will be, especially if they're early in their development, will be born with birth defects because that's usually like you see that in environmental crises like this.
and can I just, while we're on the topic, can I just say something that I think Dorothy Day would scream from the rooftops, which is, I don't know who y'all are, but if you're listening to this podcast and you think that you can bring on the second coming of Christ by doing more harm than anyone has ever done in the world through war and destruction, that is testing God. And I think we literally had like a Bible verse on this, like in a recent, like, was it this? Like it's always in the Lenten season, or maybe it was in our now that I'm doing the Lenten journal with you, it came up somewhere, but it's like we are not to be testing God. Like that's like Jesus will come in his time, not in ours, not in
There
our time.
okay, like, very importantly, there is right, like, that one Bible quote where the end is gonna come like a thief in the night. You can't predict it, like, Jesus literally told us this, and, like, I'm sorry, anybody who believes that this is us bringing on the end of the world, just read a freaking history book. I cannot tell you like, literally, it is
Mhm.
countless the amount of times people have predicted Armageddon.
Who
Countless.
claimed they knew? Like, yeah, you're right. Like that these people were pompous enough to say, and then what do they look like? They look nutty buddy bears. Nutty buddy bears.
Not only that, but like it's prediction, right? That it's going to be the end times, okay? And people are like I get it, there are signs, so you're going to look for the signs even though you're basically told not to do that. But you could be hit by a bus tomorrow.
Hmm.
For you personally, the result is the same. You will face your judgment, okay? So like I'm not saying like you shouldn't care about the rest of the world, but like come on. Like that is I'm like I don't like I even when I can tell you I had this conversation with my dad when I was a teenager. I was like I do not understand why people worry so much about the end of the world because you could die tomorrow and you're
We
going
are supposed to be
to
preparing
face
for this
God.
every day as Roman Catholics. We don't know when our end is. And I just feel like if Dorothy Day was here, she
Mhm.
would be like, you could be spending your time trying to bring heaven to earth, but here you are breaking every commandment there is
Um
by wishing war on the world.
I don't know if you've done today's Lenten journal.
I did this morning.
Okay, good. Because I didn't want to spoil it for you, but I think it's really prevalent. So so we're both working on this wonderful journal by Sister Josephine Garrett.
And
Uh,
Sister Josephine, if you're listening, we love you.
we do love you. Um, if you're listening, please let us know so that we can both die of happiness. But she's a wonderful highly recommend this journal first of all. I'm really enjoying it. It's like like you're basically like reading like 2 pages a day and like reflecting on it. It's not a lot of work. Sometimes it asks you to read a little bit more in the Bible, but I'd be surprised if you couldn't get every single one of these done in 10 minutes. Probably most of them are less than 5.
Totally.
Like obviously you can spend more time with it if you want to, but
If
like
it speaks to you.
yes. And there have been times where it has, where like I end up because there's only so much room in the book there and I just tend to journal on my phone. I end up like flipping up my notepad and just like writing down thoughts. But anyways, she talks about there is this question reflecting on if the Trinity was looking at the world today, what would they be seeing? What would they be concerned with?
I have to tell you, it was so, I didn't actually look to see when she wrote this or when it was published, but whenever I read that question, I thought, wow, I can't believe what I have to write down right now because it is so extremely obvious.
I literally was just like Iran, petroleum, ice. And I was just like, I don't think it's like that old of a document, but like, even if it was written like 5 years ago, I mean, there was stuff going on, but I'm just like, there's no way she could know that this was going to fall on the Monday of a week, like just like 1 week into a war.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh man, that hits me in the heart because that's exactly how I felt this morning.
that's it. But like, seriously, Meg, that was my exact process. And I think it
We
kind of
were
looks
like
like
in
that
two
in my
different
notes.
spaces thinking the same thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would be real, and so I'm also doing this with like a texting group that I met through like what is it called TikTok. Even though we're not on TikTok anymore, it was like right before I left. There's, anyways, I haven't really because I did it just before we started talking. Like I don't know, I was working on it like an hour ago. But so I haven't really texted the group about it yet, and nobody else has really said anything. But I'm like, I want to ask them. I want to be all like, so y'all like just like think about the war too.
I mean, seriously, it was like, I was thinking about this, like, since the beginning of the creation of our nation, we've been at war, we've been disappearing indigenous people, we white people, just to be clear. Um, and I was thinking about how this has constantly been the concern of the Trinity and how it has not changed over time. Like colonization Yes, it was happening when the UK was being terrible, but the Vikings weren't really known for being great. And I was like, it seems as though this has just always been the biggest concern. I believe in my heart of hearts that the Trinity, when the Trinity, like when God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit are looking at the world, I know they're like, this is a disaster.
Um, I think this is why my man Pope Leo was like, war is not holy, peace is holy. Which is kind of a clapback to all those Protestant ministers who thought it would be such a great idea to go bless Trump.
And the white nationalist Roman Catholics that are
Mhm.
doing the same. It's a clap back to Opus Dei.
It is. And even if they're not directly like openly white nationalist, if you're somebody who's trying to play that line, don't be a lukewarm Catholic, okay?
Oh, and the Armageddon thing I was talking about was on like Catholic saints
Yes.
on, and so like I'll tell you that's like where my rage of that topic came up today, but it just really went along perfectly because I was like, Dorothy Day was living through War, which was horrific. But what we're dealing with now, it's even it's I don't want to say, yeah, I'm going to say it's worse. It is so much worse. It's so much like I don't know. I'm positive she would have already been arrested for fighting ICE. Positive. I have no doubts.
I actually have no doubts either. She was arrested like
That's why I'm
a,
saying that.
a lot. The quote that I was earlier when we are talking about like really getting to know the poor, she said, there are two things you should know. The poor, they tend to smell and they are ungrateful.
Oh, how funny.
But I think it's like, people like I've seen it. You've probably seen it. Like I've worked in nonprofits and I have seen people come and volunteer and then be upset that like people don't act like so grateful. And I'm like, yeah, they don't have the energy because they're trying to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can you imagine how you would like like you might and some people, we would get like when I ran a food bank for a very short amount of time, we would get like letters and stuff like that thanking us for it too. But like
Mm-hmm.
you also have a lot of people that like first of all, they're there because the system puts them there. It's very rare that people are there through their own choices. I do not care what you say. Um if you are working 3 jobs and still can't afford food for your family, if you're working 1 job and you can't afford food for your family,
Mm-hmm.
there's something wrong.
There,
So
there is. And on top of that, like, we're not even considering like the mental health crisis, the addiction crisis that we're dealing with in the world, not even our country alone. Like, we're talking about the entire world.
I was gonna talk about Mother Cabrini today,
I
but
was going to ask you, yes,
which I can do, or we could
please
save.
do.
Okay. So Mother Cabrini, you may have heard of her recently because in Chicago they are going to replace a statue of Columbus with Mother Cabrini.
It
Uh,
feels appropriate.
it is appropriate. So Mother Cabrini is the patron saint of immigrants. Do you
Love
know
it.
anything about her?
I don't know anything about her at
Okay.
all. Never
I
even heard of her until you told me her name.
I didn't really until recently. Her name has come up because of ICE a number of times. And you sent me this thing about her becoming an immigrant, but I'd also seen or about becoming the new statue, but I had also seen something about it. Also, I didn't watch it, but about a year ago, a movie came out about her. So a lot of people might be familiar with that. It's called Cabrini. Um, Not 100% historically accurate, but it's meant to capture the spirit of her.
That's
So,
nice.
um, Mother Cabrini was born in Italy. Um, I can't remember. She was one of a lot of children because they're Catholic. I think mostly daughters. She did not have good health. She was actually, after her parents passed away and she tried to join the convent like 3 times, maybe more, before they finally accepted her because her health was bad. Like she had some type of chronic illness. She was just kind of sickly. This is the 1900s. They didn't really always diagnose everything. Which like hard relate because I have a chronic illness and sometimes I feel very stifled by it. Um, And this is not an encouragement to like push through because there were days that Mother Cabrini spent in bed. Okay. Um,
Oh.
but she was super passionate about missionary work, which was a man's thing at that time. There's even this story that her parents found her putting like a little boat into the creek and then like a little paper boat she made into the creek and then putting like little wildflowers she'd picked and being like, and you're going to China and you're going to Uganda, like sending off her little missionaries as a child. Like
Oh.
this is a true story. So
Oh.
super cute. So you can see like God really put this in her heart. Um, so like I said, took her forever. A lot of people did realize like she had quite a talent for leadership and stuff like that. So she actually I believe she's actually started running an orphanage before she was fully accepted into an order. They like small town needed an orphanage runner. She had been like a teacher for 5 seconds, but the bishop's like, I know she's passionate. I'm going to use that. And then he didn't want her to go. He like
Oh.
he actually kind of played into her being denied a number of times for her health because he didn't want to lose her as the asset that she was. Isn't that nice? We see that a
Yeah.
lot in history. Oh, I can't lose
Yeah.
this person. Um, but she does eventually get into an order. She like her whole life wants to go to China. She like feels called to go to China. That's where she wants to go.
Mhm.
Eventually, after like have she starts an order of missionaries. She knows she wants to go somewhere. She needs to get permission. Finally, she gets to talk to the Pope. And the Pope is like, "You're going to go to the United States instead."
Wow.
But she'd already been kind of swaying that way. There's like this bishop that she had a really great relationship with, and he kept talking about the plight of Italian immigrants in the United States. Italian immigrants were being told in America, like, hey, go to the United States. You can have a job and send money back to your family. And they would get to the United States and they'd been lied to. So sometimes
Mhm.
they'd have jobs, but it would be very dangerous. Oftentimes they were kind of indentured, right? Like they were not quite, but they were having to pay off the debt of their passage.
Mhm.
And they were
Which
living
is
in,
slavery.
which is slavery, yeah. And they were living in these really, really terrible tenement buildings, like slums, right? Just, one room apartments that weren't sanitary. If any diseases broke out, like tuberculosis, very common back then, they didn't have a
For
treatment
real.
for it yet.
Oh,
Um,
and it's come back now. It's making a comeback.
Oh, I know. There was a huge
Mhm.
outbreak in Kansas City last year.
Yep.
Um, Tuberculosis is very contagious, and I haven't deep dived into it, but I do kind of wonder if there's some
The
anti.
book, Everything is Tuberculosis, is one of
Oh,
the best books I've read.
have you read it? I've been meaning to read it, and that's by
It's
John
really
Green.
good.
Really interesting person to write it, but I've seen a lot of clips about it. Hilarious because he really. But I mean, tuberculosis was such a it had such a cultural impact. It really did. Even like the like waif life like appearance that they kind of like favored in the 1800s is because they like literally were like romanticizing tuberculosis.
But I think that really goes to show you how this saint comes to the United States and, of course, not a saint at the time, working the way there, and was like fearless in a lot of ways, like just knew, like, because everybody knows disease is part of it, of travel, honestly.
So her and her sisters, right? She's the mother by this point. They get on a boat to the United States, a steamship. So it's not, months of passage, but it's still like 13 days. And it sucks. They're in like really poor quarters. They're all seasick. When they got to the United States, they were like, kiss the land, happy to be on shore.
I
Okay.
bet.
They get
I know
there,
I would be.
and the bishop that they're supposed to connect with tells them to go home.
You no.
Uh-huh. He's like, there's no money for you here. How are you going to do this? And like, these women are great. Like, even when she started the order in Italy, like, they were begging, like, they'd go out and beg for the money they needed. They would embroider stuff. Like, they were not handed nothing. Appalled at their boldness, Archbishop Corrigan glared at the two women who came to sit before him, his face reddening with anger. How dare they question his decision? He'd already expressed his feelings about this orphanage. He was not about to back down, even under that intense gaze of Mother Cabrini's blue eyes. She's very like known for having very intense blue eyes. Uh,
Oh.
My suggestion, Mother Cabrini, is you take your sisters and go back to Italy on the next boat. Mother Cabrini's expression did not change. I was sent here by Pope Leo the 13th, she said, and therefore I will stay.
I love it.
Yeah, she's like, I'm sorry, sir, but a power greater than you sent me here. So she was, she was very much a Catholic woman of her time. Like, there were many times where she wanted to do something and the bishop said no. And so she was like, okay, because obedience, should talk about that sometime, but obedience is a thing in the church, still to this day. So she's like, I will obey. But I think now she's like, excuse me, sir, the Pope sent me here, so you can just shut up. Like, um,
I love it.
they they did struggle. So there was this like rich lady who was sponsoring the orphanage. She wanted to put an orphanage in the rich people part of town. And the bishop's like, nobody wants it there because, other rich people don't like that. She did eventually open this orphanage. It was her first um, institution in the United States. So she goes on in the United States to open orphanages and hospitals all over the freaking place. She starts in New York.
Superwoman.
She goes on to like Chicago. She ends up in Cincinnati, not Cincinnati. She ends up in Seattle, and she ends up in Seattle at one point, and in Denver. And in fact, she is also very recognized in Denver. Denver has a holiday for her.
Wow.
Yeah, I like there was a YouTube video. I think it was called like something like the real Mother Cabrini, but they have not just Denver, sorry, in Colorado, there's a statutory holiday in Colorado for Mother Cabrini.
That's amazing.
And because she did good work, mostly for Italians, like that was her focus, right? She was they're her countrymen, but like they would open hospitals for the poor for poor Italians. It's not that they would say no to the rich, but like other immigrants would show up and they would treat them. They never turned people away.
Hmm.
So Irish immigrants would also get treatment there. Which, if you know anything about the time, Irish and Italian immigrants were not friends.
No, they weren't.
So there's still some like animosity there to this day. It's very interesting, but I think now it's almost more like jokingly. Uh, and obviously, like so many people in the United States have both ancestries. Italian. Yeah, I'm Italian on my mom's side and Irish on my dad's. Not me. I'm like just Dutch, and more Dutch, but like this is very common. And it's because there were
Hmm.
so many immigrants from Italy and Ireland to the US. So there's also, she talks about how Southern Italians, because they're darker complexion, are discriminated against a lot. And if you like read like newspapers and literature and stuff from that time, Italians were not considered white.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's also just propaganda.
Well, it's also like race. It's just also because race is a social.
It's a made up construct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's like a really famous anthropologist, Harrison, who did a study in Brazil where he identified like 43 different racial distinctions in Brazilian culture.
Hmm.
And a rich black man in a Mercedes would be called a white man
Yep. That's on. Yeah. Hmm.
because it's right, which is not quite how it works here because different culture, but race is not real. Like it really isn't. There's no basis for it in biology or anything. You're talking about slightly more melanin in the skin. That's it. There's so many like I had an anthropology professor in college who was like would make much more sense to class people on whether they had resistance to malaria or not because they have sickle cell. He's like people who have sickle cell have way more in common than people who have the same skin color. She's a really cool lady. So not only does she do this, but she also so she goes back and forth to Italy a lot to like talk with the Pope to get new missionaries going. She gets missionaries, a lot of missionaries from Italy, but she also starts getting Irish girls in the United States and like Americans come and be part of her mission work. Um, but so she goes on. She does come back to the United States. She became a U.S. citizen at one point through naturalization, but she does go on to also start some schools and some orphanages and things like that in Panama and Nicaragua. Which
That's man, it's just like she doesn't stop. I
oh,
love it.
it gets better. So she's doing all this traveling at a time where there was like a lot of walking involved often, or horses and stuff like that. Um, Somehow she ends up in South America. They're trying to get to Lima, and they're on the wrong side of the continent, so they cross the Andes. And at this
Whoa.
point, she's like in her 50s, this woman who's been sickly her entire life. Uh,
Wow.
and they hike some of it, and she's on a mule for some of it. Um, and like I even found like a letter online where she's like, she's on this mule. She talks about how they were ready to say the rosary, and then they came to like a really scary part. And she's like, I'm on this mule. And these are literally her words. She goes, then I tried to keep my mule away from the edge. But the poor thing, knowing that it had an unpractical traveler in its saddle, always kept going straight. No matter how much I pulled it from one side to the other, it would not obey me. When I would approach too near the edge of the precipice, I shouted and spoke to it in Spanish, but to no purpose. Another thing that's very interesting about her is she did like when they came to the United States, she was traveling with this other woman, this other nun who had learned English. So she taught them some English, but she
Mhm.
never became fluent. Really, her only fluent language was Italian. So she did all this just speaking one language.
Amazing.
Um, and gosh, I really wish I could remember her name. Unfortunately, that other sister who was younger, she passed away. She was
Mm.
very young. I think she was like 33.
Mhm.
Um, but those were the times, right? She got some kind of illness and she passed away. It doesn't really specify in the book. Like she was back home with her family when it happened. Um, so this very sickly elderly woman, she ends up going back to the United States, back to Chicago, because she has concerns about the Italian hospital in Chicago. Um, and that's like kind of where she kind of ends her life. Um, I think she was like in her 60s when she finally passed away.
Oh
And,
my
like, there were legit
goodness.
times in her 20s when they were like, "You're gonna die in 2 years."
Oh my gosh.
So it's not like she lived a super long life, but she did pretty good. But, like, there's
With
also
all that
point
traveling, that's impressive.
oh, yeah. Do you know how many times she crossed the Atlantic Ocean?
How many times?
23.
She knew what her calling was from day one. That is just amazing.
She like, such a passion, this woman, and she was very passionate about spreading the gospels, about Catholicism. Like, she was really sad to know that there were people who didn't know religion, who didn't know what Christianity was. And, like, some of that, I'm like, "This is a little bit colonial," but, like, she really cared. Like, um
Well, I mean, let's just think about it that way, right? It's so different to show up and be like the Spanish Inquisition versus, hey, I'm here to help and actually help.
and she did actually help, and she
That's
never
what I'm saying,
like,
like building hospitals, like that is not
there
engaging in war and threat.
this woman, she could engage with rich people, but there's so many like examples of where she was like, "Oh, we are but humble nuns. Like, I don't really want to do that." Like, she would kind of like indulge in luxury. And when I say in luxury, I mean like going and eating like on a ship and listening to music with the captain on a ship she was already on because he
Mhm.
invited her. And she'd be like, "Well, I can't really say no." But she really took her vows of poverty like seriously. Um,
Mhm.
One of her in speaking to her, like, just going anywhere, um, one of her most famous quotes is, "I will go anywhere and do anything in order to communicate the love of Jesus to those who do not know him or have forgotten him." So, like, that was another thing she did. She talked because, like, you have this huge Italian population in the United States. A lot of them are going and becoming Protestant because there's no Catholic churches around.
Mhm.
So she really did bring a lot of people back into the faith. Like, and never through force or anything, just like talking to people and sharing her faith. Like being a magnifying glass, right? Like we
Mhm.
talk about Mary as the Magnificat because she magnifies God. If you are in truly like good relationship with God, that's what you do, right? Like you magnify the love of Christ. People see the love of Christ through you.
Also, before we wrap up, we don't have we spent a lot of time talking about people who are very important, saints that are very important to us, and probably soon to be canonized saints that are very, very important to us. But another, there's two more I just kind of want to mention. I know there's like hundreds, but I just want to mention Saint Rose of Lima, patron saint of Latin America, gardeners, florists, and embroiderers. Nicole, did you know I did not know Saint Rose of Lima was a patron saint of embroiderers?
I was
I
not
was
aware of
like,
that either.
so when we are doing our work, we need to call on Saint Rose of Lima. And then another shout out was to one that I had never heard of, and I sent you a picture of these. They are so precious. The Shining Light dolls. Oh my goodness, I am so obsessed with these precious little things. And another one, they remind me of like the old school, like little Russian dolls. But the other one here was Saint, I hope I say this correctly, and forgive me if I botch it completely, pod listeners, but Saint Kateri,
Uh, Katatari Tekakwitha.
patron of Native Americans, the environment slash ecology, and loss of parents. And I did read Saint Kateri's like kind of like bio. And I just like, there are so many saints, like women who are in the church, of the church, who have planted so many seeds and they themselves have become saints. And there's just countless acts of service and activism and advocating for those who are less than. Ladies, we have so many saints to look up to. Like, we're not even, this
Um,
is not even touching the surface.
so she she is both Canadian and American. Like she was a Mohawk that like switched back and forth that line, right? Because her territory wasn't ours. But she ended up with like the French missionaries. That's how she
Mhm.
ended up being a Catholic because she wasn't born a Catholic. And she took the name Catherine as her Christian name, so Kateri.
Ah,
Yeah, I read a book about her, and I like it was a long time ago, guys. It was like when I was 13, so I don't remember what it was. But at the time, I thought she was already a saint. She wasn't. She's a saint now, but she was a blessed, I think, at the time. I
she
just
was a
didn't.
blessed. With Pope John Paul II, she was a blessed.
Yeah, did not understand that distinction as a child, so I just thought she was a saint. So I read her story when I was a child, like 13. That was
Hmm.
another one. I was pretty Catholic when I was 13.
Oh, yeah.
Um, it was really good. I highly recommend reading her story. It's very interesting, especially if you like history. It's just like very, very interesting, or like learning about other cultures and things like that. Really, really good story.
And like
Um,
for the dudes that are listening to the podcast, like y'all also need to be calling on, like I call on like St. Jude, I call on, Padre Pio, like call on these amazing women saints
I think
because they are there for you, like they are just like they are there for us. And we are just celebrating
you can
because
pray to other women or ask
Mhm,
other women to pray for you besides Mary. Just
exactly. That's what I was saying. Besides Mary, because all of us,
yeah,
right,
I
our
definitely think a
rosaries were
lot of men have
attached.
a devotion to Mary, but I think you're right. I think women like we pray to Saint Anthony, we pray to Saint Jude, we pray to Saint Augustine. And men, unless they're looking for a very particular patron saint of something, and I
Mhm.
think that has a lot to do with patriarchal culture, just not valuing women
And that's
really.
why I wanted to mention it because, this is Women's History Month and like this is really for me, we are all made in the image of God. And there is just no reason that we shouldn't be leaning on one another, no
I think
matter what, no matter race, no matter sex, no matter gender, no matter blah, blah, blah.
so, and it's fine if you wanna be like, "Well, men and women are different." I'm not like, we're not here to argue that. But, like, what it is, like, thinking that that limits our capabilities because, like, look at this. Like, she went out and she like, Mother Cabrini, like, went out and she started I think it was, like, 63 different institutions or something like that.
Hmm.
Like, most of us
Rock star.
don't start one. Um, so, like, just, like, women do build things when we're allowed to, when we're not oppressed. Um, there's actually I've got a good little quote from her that's kind of in line with this. And it's in this story, it is like a quote of Mother Cabrini. Mother, smiling and speaking in a low tone of voice to the two sisters, said, "Poor things, they cannot believe that we are able to do a little business." And this is when she's trying to start a sanitarium in Seattle. Like, there's
Wow.
she gets underestimated a lot in business. There's, like, kind of right at the beginning of the book, it, like, kind of flashes forward to, like, a point where her and the nuns are, like, out measuring a plot of land because they believe that they've been lied to, and they were. Like, she was not one to have the wool pulled over her eyes. She knew her stuff. She
Oh, I
was smart.
love that. I love that.
Uh,
Well, we are officially hitting about an hour recording, so I think this is a great time to say remember to like, subscribe, follow us.
we also are on, we're on Instagram, Facebook, Upscroll, Blue Sky, and Threads as well. Um, we're not on TikTok. We feel like that's fallen.
It is fallen.
Also, if you can leave us a review, like if you want to support, like if you like this podcast and want other people to listen to it, please leave us a positive review because it does help.
What is one thing that blessed you this week?
Um, the weather.
Oh, that's a good one. The weather has been angelic.
It was like 77 degrees today. I went on a walk with two of my coworkers outside and it was great.
I love it.
What is
Absolutely.
what's something that's blessed you this week?
So it has been my random trip to the Catholic supply store over here in St. Louis. um,
Please see the
I
post I made with her quote. She wrote it, but
yes,
yeah,
I had the best time, and so I'm just gonna talk about this little bitty tiny like black Jesus that I found, and the reason that I love it is because a lot of times like I'll see the tiny little white Jesuses. And the
we
truth
have
is
like
like
we
they
have
kind of
like
make me feel alarmed because I'm always like, is this a white Christian nationalist place? But Black Jesus never makes me feel that way. That was my joy, and just remember to stay Catholic.
not fascist.